Welcome to Shell Scripting workshop. Here we'll see sample programs for the shell scripting. So shell is an entity in any operating system. If you are aware of programming with shells, you can interrupt and understand the functionality of OS underneath the operating system. Like we all know that OS is a combination of hardware and software. But how do this hardware interact with software is where many implementations or understandings be happened. So in that aspect, coming to Linux based operating system with the different distros, we have hardware. Over that there is an we call it as kernel. So that is a core part of uh, softwares to fetch the hardware level detail and interpret that to a software applications whichever you run. Even a editor is an application you use. Yeah, va editor is an application, a cat commands or applications. So if you want to interact with kernel, you need a layer. Over that we call it as shell, and over that shell we have our applications like va applications or browsers. Whatever Linux commands you execute, it comes along the path like application, then shell layer, then kernel layer, then get into hardware. So knowing shell scripting helps to minimize our manual efforts to read the internals of operating systems. As I said, operating systems we are well exposed to application layer level to work on operating system commands and understand how each process services being enabled in application layer level, and what is the process id, how it interacts between the process, how scheduling happens, how parallelly process happens. Added to all these things, there are few default program scripts written in shell scripting that makes that when that process to start and when the messaging has to perform between the two process. What are the details to be abstracted at internals and all done with shell scripting. When you just boot up your system, what happens is you just comes with an login prompt, and before that you might have seen that it's loading with an build image and kernel version. Hope you all see. So that kernel version actually is a will not frequently changed. It is also under development because many it has to support on various hardware. So but iOS versions keep frequently released, but the kernel versions is occasionally will release. Why? Because they have a very strong intact with the chipsets. So which chipsets you use? For example, if you are using a home based application chipsets, you will have a normal use home based computing systems like either a laptop or desktop. It will use x6 8086 architecture of that chipset. There are plenty of chipsets are there in the market. It's not standard that 8086 the same home based processing. There are plenty of architectures there. So that to get have matched to know the internals of the hardware, like where the uh, power supply, how the peripherals of the chipsets are been interacting. So everything you can still debug at kernel level. But for that we need few script language to understand what happens internal the kernel level and how it is built. So shell scripting comes in that aspects as well. So it's a bridge between kernel level code understanding and helps to uh, know the internals like mm, details with the help of few libraries, but it has its own defined set of instructions that helps to do scripting so that the it can be used by application layer protocol like even C programmings. uh, we directly get into the header files like slag stdio.h. So what it does, standard input and output. So just it's fetching an input from your user and just displaying it. So what happens in between, like when you give a giving a feeding and in input text, it in terms of converting from basic letters to ASCII code, and ASCII code is being processed and stored in a memory, and it process to run your program and getting a binary output and generating an object file and your by executable file. So what happens all along the way is it taking the support of the scripting in aspects of like operators operations happening. So have all the models, shell itself have its own defined protocol. Let's discuss all together in the exercise. So I am created. Okay, create. I will create like this directory. We start the first one. So first we are going to see topic on how to write and execute bash scripts in Linux. So creating a shell script in Linux. So I will create as such itself a directory. Creating shell script in Linux. Then I just can get into shell. So when I hit shell as such, it will get into the shell prompt. We call this $sim as shell prompt. So what it does is it will get into its environment where you can see few of its well defined variables which are in default available. So these are the shell variables. When I say that it act as an interface between kernel and software, so this if we get into in detail about see shell, here we are using a bash shell as a default, so it has opening a bash shell. So for example, if you want to know what bus it's using, so was actually it's a synchronous bidirectional synchronous messaging thing. So what happens is it's one of the um, topology used. Okay, so for bits communication between the ports, hardware ports. So to know what variables are set and what it is using, you can get to know in-depth details about the shell over the environment it is using. So it brings up all the language, what language, in English language, user, mm, VLAN support, and home on the whole, like what is the current working directory, every details. Okay, so plenty of there to explore and keep working. So now we'll quickly get into create how to print hello. So I'm able to print through. There is a syntax called echo that actually helps to. So added to that, when we want to create as a file, to then we keep using the hello print. We use this operation called hashbang or shebang. The shell hello uses. Okay, and I hit, I can able to run as a script. So I can even give like this, because we saw that it's defaultly taking bash as my shell. So here you won't see that difference. Here if you see that shell we just seen few minutes before, right? Yeah, once seen, it's confirmed. These things keep, we have to note info if recall and have to get it. Okay, the shell, see now it's pointed at first. Earlier it was pointing down and now it is coming to first. These are certain things the shell automatically do. So we have to identify it and should understand it. So when I, so here you can see that I'm using here bash. So hitting getting into the bash shell and working on it. Now if I want to add few more things like assigning a age to user sh, then for a good practice we can include this. But since we have well defined variable, even without above that hashbang statement you can run. But it's a good practice to know, because in case if you are using few other shells, there are prominent shells like 4 5 different shells are there. Shell, born again shell, this we as bash, and z shell is there, c shell is there, t shell is there. So it's good practice to know which shell our program works. So I'm printing, and to print here we need to give echo command. This helps here. Bash shell age See, now I'm able to